on the extreme outside. Then it is a Payne and a Forewarned. They're at the top of the stretch. It's Endorsed with the lead. Ran 3/4 in 111. Here's Code of Honor on the outside. Endorsed has the lead as they come down for the 8th pole. Code of Honor continues to gain. It is Endorsed on the inside and Code of Honor on the outside. And the two of them are putting on a good stretch run. Code of Honor now takes the lead inside the 16th pole. And Code of Honor wins his 4-year-old debut.
Welcome back to the Racing Rundown here on YouTube. I'm Eric DeCoster, and we are in for an absolute treat as we will be discussing the Grade 1 Met Mile in this episode. A very fun group of horses assembled in this race. 8 of the best middle distance horses on the dirt in the country this year. I really don't know if we're going to see a better race this year than this race. Goes as race 9 on this Saturday, July 4th. Fun race. Usually ran on Belmont Stakes Day, but with all the crazy changes this year, pushed a month back and headlines this very impressive card that that Belmont has put together for this weekend. So, like I said, really good group of 8 horses. We're going to talk about all of them. Go into the pace scenario. I don't know how much it's going to matter in this race. There isn't really any signs that we'll see from the pace setup, but it's going to be a good group, and then at the very end, I will give my picks. So we'll start with the one, Network Effect, for trainer Chad Brown. He is absolutely loaded this weekend with good runners, and this is just another one. Could cap off a big day for him. Network Effect coming off a second in the Carter last time out. That was his first Grade 1 placing behind Vekoma. He was never going to beat Vekoma, however, he did run a very strong race closing there. That was his first win of the year. He's 1 for 3. His other loss came at the beginning of the year. His first start of the year, he was second in an allowance, but he did win the Big Drama, a Florida-bred restricted race in May of this year. So some nice back class to him. That was his first run at Belmont in the Carter. That was a good second. Irad Ortiz Jr. does get back in the saddle for this ride. These are some hot connections. Like I said, Chad Brown's loaded coming into this weekend, and he's coming off a really strong weekend last week, which saw him win the Grade 1 just a game with same rider, same owner as Network Effect. So very enticing horse to consider underneath, especially at a price. But as a win contender, there's a lot of tough horses in this race. He's going to need to make a jump if he wants to have a chance in this tough race. The 2 is Vekoma, the impressive winner of the Carter last time out. That was his first career Grade 1 score. Best career race by far, highest speed figures according to every single source, and visually just the most impressive, a 7-length domination in that race. That was a very nice win. He now steps up to the mile, the race distance he is pretty comfortable with. He is 1 for 1 when he won the National as a 2-year-old. Definitely a one-turn horse, and really likes Belmont. 2 for 2 here when he broke his maiden, and then when he won the Carter last time out. 2 wins so far this year. To go along with that, his only bad career race was that Kentucky Derby. Really the horse to beat here. We have a lot of impressive horses we'll touch on, but everything is pointing to this horse running another big race. I have said, and I think most people would agree, that Carter field was not the toughest group he could face. This is obviously the toughest group he could face. Nobody's really better than these horses in this year's Met Mile. But that Carter would beat these horses on any given day. A lot of horses will need to run career races to beat that. However, I think Vekoma will still need to take a step up because, like I said, much easier company. This is much deeper waters. You have a lot of horses who have been really well prepared coming into this race by their trainers. So it's going to be interesting. But on pure class alone, on pure paper alone, this horse is the best. He has the best resume. The 3, McKenzie, he is your morning line favorite. Whether he goes off favorite or not, I do not know. I do not envy David Aragonia, the morning line maker over at Naira, because this race is near impossible to try and identify who the favorite's going to be, who the second choice is going to be. The betting is going to be all over the place. So whether McKenzie goes off favorite or not, I couldn't tell you because so many people are going to be going with looking at Vekoma, looking at Code of Honor and other horses who I'll touch on in a moment. But we'll talk about McKenzie here. He is one start at Belmont. That was when he was second in the Met Mile last year. Really rough trip. Things did not work out well for him in that race. He probably was the best horse behind Mitole. Obviously, no shame in losing to Mitole and then beating Thundersnow in the process, among other really good horses. But he still lost, and we know he likes Belmont. You can't knock him based off that. Came back really impressively to break a 3-race losing streak when he won the Triple Bend last time out. Much easier company, but very impressive. And me and Jack, we've both said throughout time that McKenzie is a supremely talented one-turn horse. But 2 turns, he's going to be good because he's so classy, but he's not going to be as effective. He's 1 turn here. This is the ideal setup for this horse, I think. A 1-turn mile. And I like this horse a lot because knowing that Met Mile went so well last time, Baffert got the perfect prep into him in that Triple Bend. You can draw a line through that Saudi Cup. That race wasn't for him. And he's been really nicely prepped for this race. Perfect workouts. Mike Smith is in the saddle. Mike Smith can ride this Belmont track better than anybody. He's been doing it for about 30 years now. So there's just a lot to like about this horse. He's going to need to step it up, though. Like I said with all these horses, like I'll keep saying when I touch on all these horses, they need to step up. Everybody in this race needs to run a career race if they want to win. The 4 going to be your longest shot on the board, but listen, he is a Grade 1 winner at Belmont, so cross him out at your own risk. It is Hog Creek Hustle. Jose Ortiz will get in the saddle for the very first time. He won the Woody Stevens last June. That was the 3-year-old restricted race at 19-1, very impressively. And he was benefited by a very hot pace, and that's something that this horse needs. Don't know if he's going to get it in this race. He hasn't won since that Woody Stevens win. That's been about 8 races now, 7, 8 races since he last posted a victory. The one thing I do have to say, though, is he is more effective going 7 to 8 furlongs. His last few races have been sprinting. It takes this horse a while to get going. He needs more and more ground. He was gaining in his last race when he was second, beaten less than a length behind the graded stakes winning sprinter Lexitonian. But he needed more ground. If he had another half furlong, another 100 yards, maybe another 50 yards, he would have gone by easily and won. So the more distance, the better for this horse. I just don't know if the pace is going to set up well for him. He's been very spotty after that Woody Stevens win. He was spotty going into it. If you think there's going to be a pace meltdown, though, then look at this horse for at least an underneath look. For me, I don't expect it, but if you see something I don't and you think he's going to be able to close really nicely in this race, go for it. Include him underneath, or if you're really that confident in him, put him on top. The 5, Code of Honor, really the last of your 3 favorites. I think we have Vekoma, McKenzie, and Code of Honor. Those are the 3 very closely bunched favorites. And then you have your kind of second-tier horses who aren't going to be too far off of them, and they're in with a live shot. But Code of Honor, the impressive winner of the Westchester on seasonal reappearance last time out. 3 wins at Belmont and 4 career starts. Only 1 loss over this track was in the Champagne as a 2-year-old when he blew the brake and still somehow rallied well. John Velasquez back in the saddle, his regular rider. Classy horse, one of the best 3-year-olds in the country last year when it won the Travers. His best races have come at Belmont too, and I don't think that's really a secret. That Westchester last time out, very impressive. Jockey Club Gold Cup, sure he was put up by disqualification, but he ran the Breeders' Cup Classic, went right down to the wire. So while I do think he was definitely second best in that Jockey Club Gold Cup, he gave Vino Rosso all he could, and Vino Rosso, we all know he went on to win the Breeders' Cup Classic and an Eclipse Award. So no slouch losing to that horse. And then that Dwyer win, which will be about a year ago this Saturday, was also very impressive. A lot to like about this horse. Local horse, local chance here. Pedigree says the mile will be fine. But that is something I do have to mention. Before that Dwyer win last July, he had lost his other 2 races going a 1-turn mile at Belmont and at Gulfstream. I don't think he was really prepared. Well, the first was the Champagne where he blew the brake. The other was a listed stakes at Gulfstream where he really was not cranked all the way up. He was not ready for that race. So I can't say that the 1-turn mile is what will be his undoing because, that Dwyer was so impressive last year. You can't say. I think he is better going longer. That's for sure. I think that the Suburban would have been a much better spot for this horse. But I think he's still as effective at a mile. I'm not going to knock him for that. The 6 Endorsed was the runner-up in that Westchester, and he was only beaten a half length. And I don't think a lot of people are giving him enough credit for that. That was a very impressive effort. I've heard a lot of people saying that Johnny V wasn't really trying on Code of Honor. He was trying to conserve him. Listen, he had to ask Code of Honor for more than nothing. He had to ask him for some run. Endorsed really fought. I don't know if that's enough to put him in the winner's circle against this bunch, but his 2 races since going to the Belmont Barn have been stellar. That allowance win at Oaklawn against some very talented horses, and then that Westchester last time out. The pedigree is really, it's picture perfect for this 1-turn mile. I think he's really going to cherish it. And I do like that Joel Rosario is back in the saddle. His best career races have came with Rosario. So the speed figures are not there. That is one of the bigger knocks on this horse. But visually, that Westchester last time out was so impressive that he is a horse you have to consider underneath because that was a very, very nice performance. On to the 7 now, Mr. Freeze. And this horse seemed like he was going to be the easy winner of the Godolphin Mile before that race got canceled earlier this year. That was coming off a big win in the Gulfstream Park Mile, going a 1-turn mile. And then as the favorite in the Oaklawn Handicap last time out, he was 3rd behind By My Standards, who came back to run a really solid 2nd, to Tom's D'Etat in the Stephen Foster and Warrior's Charge, who's also in this race. Very talented horse here. He's 2 for 3 going the mile, and the 2 times it was 1 turn, he did win. And the mile is his best distance. In all honesty, this horse is very underrated. I think that this is a horse who could easily take that step up in this race and beat this group. I do like that Manny Franco's aboard too. Franco, we all know he's very great at Belmont, but he also was aboard this horse for his last win. Lot to like about this horse if you're trying to look for some value. If you don't want to pick any of the 3 favorites for some reason, this has to be your horse, Mr. Freeze. The 8 and the last horse in the race, Warrior's Charge, Brad Cox trainee, ridden by Florent Giroux, 2nd last time out in the Oaklawn Handicap, and 2 starts ago took the Grade 3 Razorback at Oaklawn Park. He's won 4 of his last 6. His only losses coming in the Preakness last May and last time out in the Oaklawn Handicap. A very nice horse. I do really wonder how effective he's going to be going 1-turn mile. Based off his pedigree and based off how he looks, it seems like something he'd be really good at, but his 3 1-turn efforts were his 3 career losses before he broke his maiden on his 4th career attempt. So that is one thing to note, is that although everything seems to indicate he's probably really fit for this 1-turn mile, his other times going 1 turn and going a mile, he has lost. I don't know how much weight to put on that, but it is a bit of a concern for me. He is going to be the leader likely in this race. It's going to be him, battling it out early on with probably Mr. Freeze and maybe even Endorsed or Vacoma. But he's not going to get burnt out. And this is a horse who has been able to sustain some pretty quick early fractions and still run huge races. I genuinely just wonder if he is of this level. He's beaten some pretty impressive allowance groups in his career, and that Razorback win was very impressive. That was just a perfect ride. That was a race where he did get an easier early lead and was just able to hold on. That last time out in the Oaklawn Handicap, a little tougher. I think this one's going to be the toughest, though, because he has to face some sprinter speed, and I just don't know if he has that sprinter speed. For me, and I try to be unbiased when I go through these horses, but I think Warrior's Charge is a horse you can go against. I think there's just a lot of factors that don't look good for him, and there's also just better horses in this race. So let's go over the pace scenario real quick. I already kind of touched on it. Warrior's Charge likely to be on the early lead. Mr. Freeze, he's going to be riding behind him, and you're likely going to see Vacoma go up there early on. But Warrior's Charge is likely to be your early leader. And then expect horses like Endorsed to tuck right in behind him. And then coming from behind, Code of Honor, McKinsey, and Network Effect will all be coming from off the pace in this race. My top pick is McKinsey. I just really loved his Met Mile last year. I loved his prep for this race. Things are pointing upwards for this horse. And like I said, I really can't forecast how the betting's going to look here, but I think you might just be lucky enough to see him go off 2nd or 3rd choice instead of favored. I'm taking him over Network Effect. I think he's a long shot who could hit the board. He's very sneakily had a very strong year to this point. And then I'll say Code of Honor for 3rd, but there are so many directions you can go in this race. I think all 8 are in with a chance. There's obviously horses I like more than others, but truly there are 8 ways to go in this race, 1,000 different exacta and trifecta combinations you can come up with. Everybody in this race is in with a chance. So that's all I have for you here. I hope I was able to maybe give you 1 or 2 points that might, say, hey, I really like that horse now, or I don't like that horse so much, and kind of thin it out for you. But truly, this is one tough race, but an exciting race. One of the best we'll see all year. So we'll see you next time here on the Racing Rundown, and good luck here in the Grade 1 Met Mile.
Axman still cruising thus far. Fashionably fast, McKenzie turning up the pressure on the outside. They're followed by Flagstaff and Dark Vader. They're at the top of the stretch, and McKenzie is now let loose. He and Fashionably Fast square off at the 8th pole. 2.5 more to Flagstaff. Coming to the 16th, it's McKenzie, hand-ridden. He's in front of half length to Fashionably Fast, and it's a warm and fuzzy reunion. McKenzie and Mike Smith are back together, and they win the Triple Bend.